Wesat Yahallah, Ikata Hrafnar. With you all health, I am Hrafnar, or Raven, whichever you prefer. This is going to be a series about a style of martial arts I believe is encoded in the Germanic mythology. I'm going to start by focusing on the Þorr mythology. Let us begin with the story about how Thor's hammer was created. Þorr is the son of Odin. Odin is the god of wisdom, war, and death, among other things, and he's the chief of the gods. Þorr is the god of the storms, god of thunders, and he's also the great protector, great warrior. He's also associated with marriages and sexuality and all kinds of other really fun stuff. Anyways, now, I'm going to tell the story because I'm going to point out that if we take a look at Norse mythology or Germanic mythology in general through the eyes of a martial artist, it really changes a lot of things. A lot of things that beforehand might have seemed as just magic actually start to make a lot more sense. So, without further ado, here's the story. And I'm not going to tell you all of the details of the story. I would like for you to seek it out for yourself. Learn by your own volition. Anyways, now, once while Þorr and his wife Sif, the goddess of the golden wheat, were sleeping, Loki came and shaved off her hair. When Þorr woke up and he was angry, Loki said that he could go to the dwarves and could have them. Well, he didn't say he could go to the dwarves, but he said that he could have a wig made for her that would regrow and that would function just like real hair, which is a whole other discussion in and of itself. And anyways, skipping over some details, Þorr says, okay, Loki goes to these dwarves and he convinces these two dwarves to make this wig. But he also convinces them to make a few other things, including, for example, a ring for, I think it was a ring either for Odin or for Freya. I can't remember, I'll have to check. But they make Mjolnir. Mjolnir is the hammer of Thor. Now, back then, the word hammer in Old Norse didn't mean quite the same thing as it means today. It basically just meant something, a blunt object that you could use for crushing stuff. And therefore, a rock could have been called hammer, you know. Also, a millstone could have been called a hammer back then. And it's actually more evident that Mjolnir was intended to imply something more like a millstone. But we'll talk about that some other time. Now, the name Mjolnir actually does come from the same root that the word millstone comes from. And it does mean pulverizer or crusher. Now, anyways, so the dwarves are making Mjolnir, and the process by which they make Mjolnir is a metaphor for the process by which a martial arts technique can be performed. And their forge or their smithy is a metaphor for us or for our body. So in the smithy, they would take the iron ore and they would put it in the furnace to smelt it and to purify it. We have iron in our blood, and our furnace is down here. Our furnace is down here. And also here. I guess technically one could say that this is also our furnace, our heart. But now, back then, in order to heat up the flames of the smithy or the forge, they would use bellows, these things that they would use to pump air into them. And these are metaphors for our breathing. As we breathe, we can heat up our blood and our bodies, especially our cores. Now, the process of putting the ore into the furnace is a metaphor for how when we tense up any part of our bodies, that actually stimulates the increased flow of blood into those areas, and therefore if we tense up our cores, we stimulate an increased flow of blood into our cores. So, you know, the putting of the iron ore into the furnace means putting tension into our core, and tensing our core. And therefore, the process of heating up that iron and then taking the iron out and hammering it is a metaphor for after we've heated up our cores with our breathing and with doing a hold down here, how we can take that freshly heated up power from down here, that iron and that power inside of us, and we can move it into our fists. And we do this by clenching our fists and by hammering our fists, by punching and hammering, which is metaphorically symbolized by when you take the iron out of the furnace or out of the forge, and you hammer it into the shape of a weapon. And so this is all a metaphor for a process by which we can summon the internal power that is Mjolnir. We all can do it. And I will go more into this technique in a later video, hopefully, if I remember to. Now, while the dwarves were making Mjolnir, Loki took on the form of a fly and he went to distract them. And the reason for this is because he doesn't want Thor to be more powerful than what he can control. And so he does this. He tries 2 times and can't break the dwarf's focus. Then finally, the 3rd time, he breaks the focus of the dwarf that's working the bellows, and this by biting his nose, and this causes the handle of Mjolnir to come out too short. And so this handle being too short represents the ability to control one's emotions or one's energy. In other words, one's temper. And therefore, the short handle represents a short temper, which is shortened by distraction. This is what's represented here. Is that the dwarf who's working the bellows represents the focus of Thor, or of the person who's summoning the hammer, right? And so Loki will try to distract you while you're trying to create or summon your hammer. He'll do so to try and break your focus and therefore reduce your control over the energy you're summoning. And that's what that represents. But anyways, so the hammer comes out with the handle too short. And so Thor says, well, I can't wield this hammer. You need to fix it. So Loki goes back to the dwarves and he has them make 3 things. He has them make a girdle, which is known as Meganjorð, and 2 gauntlets, 2 iron gauntlets, grippers. They're known as Jarngripper. And so it is said that when Thor puts on this girdle, it doubles his strength. And when he puts on these iron grippers, it gives him enough strength and enough power to lift and wield Mjolnir. Now, at first, the untrained mind would look at this and think it's just weird magical stuff from mythology, right? But it's not. First and foremost, if the short handle on the hammer represents a shortened temper, imagine what happens. Think about what happens when you see people having a hard time controlling their tempers. They clench their fists, and their fists become like iron grippers. And that's what those represent. It represents Thor using a technique to control his energy and to maintain it and contain that power. Which means that even though Thor shortened his temper, he still has a way to surmount it. He still overcomes that limitation. He still finds a way around it. He still wins. As for the belt of power, well, in modern weightlifting bodybuilding, they actually use something called a power belt, which is funny because Meganjorð literally means power belt. And while these modern weightlifters and wrestlers and such, and martial artists too, they use power belts of various kinds. In Qigong, they use a power belt as well. It works differently though. It has to do with retaining the chi, the life force on in the internal organs. I can go into that in a later video. But as for the raw science behind the weightlifting power belts, it's that when you put on that power belt, it actually allows you to access greater levels of your internal strength by reducing the amount of pressure that is put on your internal organs when you lift and when you engage those muscles. And so it does technically double or triple your strength, or rather, it doubles or triples your access to the strength. But notice that it's all about control, because the strength is already there. It's just that it gives you more control over that strength. You're able to access it more. And similarly, the gauntlets, well, he already has the power to lift that hammer. It's just that, he's not able to access it because of the short temper. So these allow him to regain greater access or greater internal control. And so that's really what it's about. And so when we engage our cores, we are creating our own meganyorths, our own girdles of power. And there's a certain technique for tensing up the muscles and holding the muscles in sort of a circle around your lower area down there. That's kind of like a sort of a girdle or a girdle hold. And as for the fact that Norse mythology says that he's able to take his hammer and throw it like a boomerang, that's not magic either. That's a reference to punching technique. The difference between someone who throws an untrained punch and someone who is a martial artist is that with an untrained punch, people have a tendency to throw themselves off balance, and it takes them a lot more energy to pull their fist back for another strike, or to block, or whatever, and they throw themselves off balance. Whereas with a trained strike, because we are moving from our core, that is, we're taking the iron out of our furnace, out of our forges, we don't throw ourselves off balance, and as a result, we're able to pack our fists with the kind of power